Us at 254-339-1122. The SicEm365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
White Sox have the best record in the American League, just ahead of the A's and also the Red Sox. But here comes Houston, and Toronto is playing well as well. And we're now joined by Julia Morales, who is the field reporter for the Houston Astros television network on SicEm365 Radio. It's great to hear from you, Julia. How you been?
Oh, so good. Good to hear your voice.
Are you now able to be where you need to be? Are you guys traveling? How is that working out now?
Not yet. Gosh, we're dying to get back on the road. We missed that. We missed just being able to interact and get the interviews in the way that we did in the past. And our poor guys calling the game, play-by-play isn't easy when you're doing it on monitors from 3,000 miles away. So that's what we've been doing. And so tonight's going to be a late one for us. We're used to being with the team. And so these 9 o'clock starts, 8:40 starts are a little rough when they turn into long games. But we're getting there. I think they're getting closer. I've heard some radio guys have hit the road. So hopefully maybe soon, maybe after the All-Star break, we're getting closer.
Astros have won 8 of 10. They're surging up towards the top. Obviously, Oakland's playing well. Why are the Astros playing better?
Well, they're putting it all together finally. They had a rough stretch there. They came out hot. If anyone saw that first series with the Astros in Oakland, and we thought, oh my God, this is the greatest team we've ever seen, just because of how well they played the first week of the season. And then they kind of, the pitching wasn't as good. The guys weren't going as deep into the games, but nothing was really alarming by any means. But the hitting kind of slowed down a little bit. Then there was the COVID IL, and the heart of the order all of a sudden ends up on the IL for 5 days, and they're trying to come back, and they come back in freezing Colorado. It was just a lot of crazy things that went on in the middle of what's been 40 games or so. So now they're just kind of putting it all back together. Had a great homestand. The pitching has been good. That Greinke was, the one struggling, which he usually isn't. Everybody else is doing a great job, but he finally came around to have a really nice start. Lance McCullers looks great. So yeah, just a little bit of everything right now, and they're rolling it at the playing a lot of AL, Oakland first, and then the Rangers this weekend.
Julia, how much is it also kind of adjusting to new roles? George Springer's gone. They wouldn't have had him for the first month anyway because Toronto didn't, but even still, you have somebody like that was such a key piece of your lineup for so long. You do have to adjust when he's not there.
Yeah, it was different. The first couple of weeks we were like, you're just so used to watching George walk up to start the game and with the chance of a homer from the first pitch on. So the lineup did look a little different. It was a little bit deeper, we thought, with George in it, obviously, but it's a good lineup, and it's been a good lineup even without him, and it's strong. Now 7 through 9 they've had struggles like every other team in the league, so not anything to worry about there. But even Cal Tucker's come around here lately. He's a guy that's hit towards that 7 spot that's all of a sudden come on strong, and they're just kind of putting it together. And Altuve's having a really nice season. They've got four or five guys maybe right now that are hitting over 300. The home runs are coming kind of from everyone. Correa's the guy that we're kind of waiting to get going. He's the one that was going to come out and have this monster year for a free agent. The free agent contract that's coming up for him, we were all kind of eyeing him and watching like what he was going to do and if he's going to put on the show. And he's the one that hasn't really got it going. But everybody else has looked good. They're kind of consistent. Yuli Gurriel is out of his mind. That was a really rough 2020 he's coming off of, but he lost a bunch of weight. I think he honestly was one of those guys that did not think they were going to play last season, and then when all of a sudden they were told to report, he was like, oh crap. And it showed, and it was a really bad year for him in the 60-game stretch, even in the playoffs. So he came ready. He looks great. They just got production all 1 through 9. Definitely a different looking team. Even with so many of those guys coming back with a guy like George. You can't pretend like he wasn't a huge impact player.
Julia, how do you feel that Dusty Baker has settled in here in year 2?
Good. He's so different than a lot of managers, and we've had some fun trying to get to know him because he is, he's super friendly and loves to tell us stories. But then, at the end of the day, you're trying to figure out his managing style and how he's going to work with these players. And then the first season, it was so much of a sprint. And then there was so much going on with the team coming off of a year where, where the signs, the sign stealing stuff came out. So there was a lot going on here. Yeah, settling in, I think, is a good word. It's finally kind of a normal season. They are still getting booed to death everywhere that they go. And Dusty's being, and he's the guy that has to answer for all that. A guy that had absolutely nothing to do with any of it. But it's starting to come around. The stories are starting to be told of, the relationships that he's building with guys. We don't know how long he's going to be around. This is kind of like a last hurrah for him. He had his option picked up. He does have, he is kind of looking at the number 2,000 when it comes to wins. He's got to come back for another year if that happens. So there's a lot of questions. It's an interesting situation with Dusty, but he's great day to day. He's great. It's great for us to be able to talk to somebody with just so many great stories and so much good knowledge. But definitely a different managing style. He goes with his gut, and that's something we are not used to. Any of us who's covered the Astros for the last decade or so, it has just not been the way. So I think they're starting to kind of feel out how much information he gets, and then how he uses it, and the players are as well. But things are going well, and they're winning right now. So no complaints from anybody at this moment.
Altuve last year, it was one of those things where you start wondering, like, oh my gosh, what's in this guy's head? And he's over 30, so you start wondering, but is it just maybe the full season he got to do everything the same way again that's gotten him back to being Jose Altuve? Now 303 based on a couple years ago is low for him, but still he's batting over 300, which is where he lives.
Yeah, and he's finally kind of trending upwards. So I bet that number goes up a little bit too. I was talking about the COVID IL. He's the one who had COVID, tested positive, and had to sit down and be by himself for 10 days. And so we were worried a little bit of how he was going to ramp up. How long would it take him to, you don't want to send this guy to AAA. I mean, it wasn't long enough to have a rehab stint. It was a weird situation, but he took a couple games, and now he's looking like Altuve. He's hitting the pitches that Altuve can hit. He's starting to really be aggressive, and we love that style of swinging from the first pitch on. He's done a really good job in the leadoff spot. I think he's just at peace with a lot of things now, to be completely honest with you. After 2020, I think a lot of them were able to kind of put some things behind them. They've talked to all the people that they need to talk to. Now the booing is just going to be a part of it. And if anybody tuned in for the Yankees series, that was a really tough one on Altuve. And for him, that was kind of that period where we thought, is the, testing positive, and then of course being gone, was that going to affect him? And of course, that's when he started to slump a little bit. It was not great timing for the Yankees to be yelling at the guy. And then of course he hit the huge 3-run home run to help them win that last game before getting out of town, which you can just tell. I mean, the guy, Altuve's not going to say how much that means to him, or what, how big of a home run that was, but his teammates were saying it for him. Just a huge jolt. And ever since then, he's been Mr. Consistent. So, I think the longer season is just kind of the way it just works perfectly into the way that Altuve is, and puts a season together. The numbers are going to be there, and he looks great. He looks, the defense looks great, and a lot of people had questions about that after the playoffs, and that has not been an issue whatsoever. So, yeah, putting together a really nice season so far.
Julia, one more thing. He hasn't played much because he's been injured in Toronto, but George Springer, how much have they been able to kind of get past not having him in their lineup?
Yeah, they have. I mean, it's just you miss the person, and that's what we saw when he showed up. They didn't. He just went on the IL when Toronto showed up in town, and of course there was going to be a tribute, and the guys came out to hug him. It was just different. I mean, they missed that guy. Michael Brantley and him had something, a really special relationship. So there's that part of George that you can't put a number on, right? And that's where a lot of people wanted him to sign back. And when you talk about, like impact players and stuff, I mean, that's who he was. He impacted in so many different ways than his bat. And then there's the bat, right? And then there's his defense. He's the best center fielder. We enjoyed watching him all those years at Minute Maid Park in center field out there. So, Miles Straw is doing what he can. I mean, he is not George Springer, and nobody asked him to be, and that's a really tough person to try to replace. They just need Miles to be Miles, and get on base when he can, steal some bags. He's one of the fastest guys in the league, and the defense is something he's working on. Has played good defense out there, but yeah, that was definitely a huge blow. But they've definitely moved past that at this point in the season.
Thank you, Julia. Great stuff. Appreciate it. Good luck. Hope you get to start traveling and get on the road. You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Julia Morales again with us on SicEm365 Radio, field reporter for the Astros television network. And there's still some that are not able to move around. The Rangers had a broadcast the other day when Nadell and company were down. It might have been in Houston where they were allowed to travel. And I remember Cooperstein from afar was like, God, I wish that was us as they started they're about to start the NBA playoffs. He brought that up yesterday.
You don't get in that business to stay in the home booth the whole time. I mean,
it's like when we do the show on Zoom. We got kind of used to it because of the freeze. We got used to it a couple of things because